Hello everyone, I'm Literary Freak 11 and today I'm going to be talking about transfiguration through different mediums and the genetic repercussions. So I'm going to start by defining my terms. Transfiguration is a complete change of form or appearance, and we need to think about what this means. And essentially, mostly what we're going to be talking about is one thing transforming from one to another. And so I've talked on this channel about entropies and the laws of conservation of mass, and we see this upheld in Transfiguration class in Harry Potter. We see that when they're doing transfiguration, they use animals that are of a similar size to what they're trying to transfigure something into. So you would transfigure a beetle into a button. Because those two things are of approximately equivalent mass, the mass of that beetle might even determine the size of the button. There are also temporary transfigurations, so we see Polyjuice Potion. In this case, it's easiest for people to make temporary transfigurations rather than permanent ones. But this magic does not necessarily defy the laws of conservation of mass. When you realize that the magic they're using is actually affecting their genetics. Your magic that you're using is affecting your genetic code for a temporary period of time. This explains why the potion is so complicated. We see one of the ways in which it can go wrong, and Hermione, who added cat fur to the potion when it was only meant to be used for human transformations, and we see that the genetic alterations caused by the potion were permanent versus the hour that they were supposed to last. Other magic was used to reverse this, but the point is still the same. The error caused by using animal hair altered her genetics permanently instead of temporarily. I have some theories about other things that might go wrong if you brew the potion incorrectly. What transfiguring yourself into another person is doing is transfiguring all of your genes and the way that you're phenotypically expressing them, but they're leaving your brain intact. If you brew this potion wrong, you may end up permanently altering your own genetics in irreversible ways. This could also give you the brain of the person that you are transfiguring into. You might think that you are actually that person, but it could also give you brain damage. The reason humans can easily transfigure into one another is because even though there is the law of conservation of mass that should apply, and humans do come in a range of body types and sizes, the fact that you have the ability to express these genes, that they are not very far off from your own genetics, makes it much easier for the magic to transform you into the person that you are trying to be. And essentially, the difference might be making your muscles more taut or lax, making a little taller, shorter, expanding or contracting the size of your organs. But essentially, the human genetic code is fairly similar. Then we get to Attack on Titan transformations. And as I'm going to talk about more in next week's video, this annoys the heck out of me, because what essentially happens is when you take on Titan form, your body gets encased in a giant Titan body. And there's no transformation, and where does all of this extra mass come from? And you could just leave that body behind too, and then make another one whenever you need to. That transfiguration is just not scientifically justifiable. But now, a vampire into a bat is a bit tricky of a proposition, because the difference between a bat and a human is much bigger than a human or a beetle and a button, etc. So in my original video on vampires, I said that it would be unlikely that they would have the ability to transform into a bat. But I think I'd like to amend that now. I think transformation might be easier into an animal of like size, but there is still a possibility of them to transfigure into an animal of any size. And back to Harry Potter. We see it that McGonagall's cat and Pettigrew's rat are very, very different sizes from them. So if you have to transform a beetle into a button, how does that work? If you as an animagus can transform into an animal that is not of like size. Now, an animagus is and a person who has the ability to transform into one specific animal actually relates to their Patronus will also be the animal that they can transform into it, because I think that this is a little bit of soul magic. Your soul is connected to this animal. That is why it manifests as your Patronus. But there's a reason that this type of magic is so difficult and why the Ministry of Magic actually regulates it and keeps tabs on people who are trying to transform. It is a security risk. If you know of someone who can transform into a rat, then they might not be as easily able to sneak into places because that's what you're expecting. But I don't think that's the main reason that they do it. I think they want the people to know the repercussions of what they're doing. And that is why the Ministry of Magic regulates it. For those libertarians out there, the Ministry of Magic should get out of the animagus business. Moving on. There are two pieces that I think make this magic so difficult. The first is the mass aspect. So where do they get all this extra mass if they're transforming into a bigger animal, or more likely, where does it go when they transform into a smaller animal? In the last book, when Professor McGonagall tries to get into Ravenclaw Tower, she has to answer a question, and the question is, where do vanished objects go? And she answered, into non-being, which is to say, everything. I think that a skilled magician can draw on this pool of mass that exists in everything, and that may be just a little bit extra, but that is enough to create your animagus. And you can also contribute mass to this pool if you are transforming into a small animal. So no extra mass is withdrawn or deposited in this in-between existence when objects of like size are being transfigured. So I think that it's much easier. The second aspect is that becoming an animagus is a permanent alteration to your genetics. There is no way to undo it, I don't believe. The genes for the animal that you want to transform into become part of your permanent genetic makeup, but they lay dormant unless you call on the magic to have them express themselves. As long as these cells are constrained to somatic cells only, or non-reproductive cells. Clearly, Harry doesn't have his father's animagus abilities to transform into a stag, but he does have a penchant towards stags, like his father, and this could be due to the emotional bond that he feels towards his father, or it could be remnants of the animagus magic that have been passed on genetically. You can also have transformations that are merely illusions. This change is not physically tangible. So if you transform into someone taller than you, if someone would say, try to kiss you and ended up kissing your forehead or something like that, they would probably realize that you are actually not that tall. So these illusions can be dispelled by touch. You retain your original mass, which is why anyone who brushes against you would be able to dispel the illusion. You could, pretend to be a cat. You could pretend to be a lion, but you would still really be a 6 foot tall human, and you would essentially kind of stand behind the illusion. That's all I have for now. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe. I put out new videos every Wednesday, and you can follow my Minds and Twitter accounts where I will post videos and updates. Link in the description below.